Good day, everyone. All right, I'm going to take an hour and we're going to look at the Bitcoin chart. We'll look at a couple alts, but mostly going to be focused on Bitcoin. I'll share the link out here and we'll dive into it. All right, well, a pretty strong recovery from this last wick relative to some of the other recoveries here. Starting to see a pretty big V shape here. I have gotten a little beat up by Bitcoin. Such bizarre price action in relation to alts. Was kind of hoping for kind of a V-shaped recovery from here. Taking these first weekly candles. But we're starting to get one now. And I did just wake up not too long ago and just decided to hop on Livestream. We had these weekly candles, daily candles. There's a little cluster of candles right here. This looks pretty strong locally. A lot of liquidity grabbed. And kind of what you want to see after a big liquidation wick. So I'd say locally, I'm not going to be surprised to see a pretty strong recovery. We're going to look at some levels overhead. Then we're going to get a broad perspective of the charts as well on a higher time frame. There are some more bearish harmonic ideas. We have some weekly highs up here, aligned with our point of control. I already know those exist. This is going to be an important high time frame level. High time frame resistance and liquidity, obviously. For anyone who's still holding shorts or taking shorts at the lows, this is going to be a major liquidity target. We've certainly seen some of these really aggressive V-shaped recoveries before into these dumps back in these days, where you have the big, but these were pretty much single candle liquidations with V-shaped recoveries. We've been in a pretty choppy downtrend coming into this impulse. Do we look for long-term retracements? Probably, but you know, on moves like this, sometimes you really don't get those clean retracements or deep retracements once the bottom comes in. And we are going to zoom out and look at some higher time frame levels. But I want to kind of go over what I was looking at, because I did take stops on Bitcoin longs, and bizarrely I'm just still in alt longs from a week ago. And I do want to look at ETH and a couple other alts as well briefly. But this was when we made that first low, taking these weekly candles. There's a big parallel structure here on a higher time frame. And we had a big 300 million delta liquidation wick there. And after those liquidation wicks, looking for those V-shaped recoveries can be quite a nice trade. So at the time, I said only in this long for a V-shaped recovery on the low time frames, like literally just straight back up. Willing to cut if not. But anyways, that's what we're seeing now. But we ended up not getting that V-shaped recovery. And I was asleep when we made the low. But man, it's so interesting how, like, so many alts, ETH in particular, just bouncing off some really key levels. Got this idea on DOT earlier that same day. Just come and grab this wick at the GP. that played out pretty much perfectly. Doge, super strong here. Came back and retested its wick from last week. Exactly a week ago on Tuesday. Same with Phil. And these are all high time frame ideas, not on the log chart here. We're high time frame targets. So just coming and retesting that wick, not a big deal for the long setup on Phil. Doge as well, a very high time frame idea. Coming into this ascending log scale trend line and a lot of key fibs, horizontals here. Came back, retested the wick. Not a big deal for the swing position from a week ago. But, well, Bitcoin's been in just a relentless downtrend. And I even marked this out on ETH yesterday, looking for this idea. And oftentimes, you know, when alts are coming down to key levels at the same time as Bitcoin is, it's a pretty strong confluence. Because if you want to imagine that most charts are technical most of the time, and when charts put in major pivots, usually it's around key strong ideas. And so when a bunch of alts are coming to key strong ideas and Bitcoin's coming to a key strong idea, usually it's a strong confluence. They usually either all work or they don't. So the thing that's kind of interesting about this is that's not the case here. So this was earlier yesterday, just saying, not trying to muddy the water with ETH here, but as per my last Bitcoin idea with the overlapping channels at the impulse origin daily candle, just explaining the chart I'm referencing in the Discord. Doing a little bit of work to see where this would put ETH as a rough confluence, as you would expect ETH to bounce with Bitcoin. That makes sense, right? If there's another move to the downside, this is when I was looking for another move to the downside. Where would that put ETH relatively on for a key technical structure? So Bitcoin needs to move another 2% from here. That would be ETH running 4% lower at the same time into this GP trendline idea. And there was also a descending channel. And so ETH came down into that level really cleanly, right around 32,831, and just bounced. It's a nice strong bounce. And so the reason I'm going over this is because we had that quicker move to the downside, bigger move to the downside into this ascending trend line on the logarithmic scale, and then it's our non-log GP. It's been a kind of a nice confluence on a lot of alts where you have that kind of intersecting log levels with the non-log levels. Just a nice clean wick. Made that initial low, and well, this is like most alts. Well, Bitcoin continued to make new lows. ETH just held up this key level, showing a lot of strength. So the reason I'm going over all of that is I want to take into consideration that a lot of alts are showing a lot of strength and bouncing very cleanly from pretty strong technical support, and they look quite strong. And yes, we just saw an example of Bitcoin basically going into a 1-week downtrend while alts traded mostly sideways and held up all their main levels, relatively speaking. Not every alt, but most of them. Typically, if we're going to see some strong pivots be put in by alts, we would expect the same from Bitcoin. And, you know, I am swing long on a bunch of these alts. And so, you know, there's a bias there for sure in terms of Bitcoin with those levels holding. But so I want to look at some bearish ideas and be open to them. But I'd probably come into this with just, okay, well, Bitcoin decided to do its own thing here, but, you know, definitely expecting some kind of recovery from this. So far, strong V shape. We've grabbed a lot of liquidity, really only one other low to take. But is there any reason here to start getting higher time frame bearish into some impulses, even if we come up into the point of control? And like I said, if you're a Discord member and you want me to take a look at any of your Bitcoin charts, and we can look at some of those ideas, go ahead and send those in the Discord, and I will take a look at them. If not, that's okay. So there are some maybe harmonic ideas to be aware of. There's really only one that's quite bearish. Considering we rejected at the 886 here, which someone in the Discord did point out, we're also bouncing from the 886 retracement. So we have an 886, that's 88.6% of the move measured. That's where we're bouncing from. It's also where we rejected from at the highs. There's not a lot of options for harmonics where you have a C leg at the 886, but there are some. And the main idea would be a bullish Gartley. But that would be quite a deep retracement into the 786 of this move, inferring that the top is in now. And that would probably be the most bearish idea. Again, I have a hard time preferring those ideas. We ultimately are still ranging. But something to be aware of for sure. Now, of course, this target is actually a target of one of my other harmonics, but requires us to come up to the this region of the chart, the 1.272, the 1414. We're following a pretty nice fractal here for a little while. Let's pull that off. Still ends in the same place, but the C leg has to come up much higher. This is really the only harmonic within this structure that that fits an 886 rejection. Still ends in the same target, but certainly a level to be aware of. Come and take all these lows. I mean, certainly possible, right? We could imagine even something like this, a big sell-off, ends quite bullishly. So regardless, going to be watching that level closely if it comes. I think structurally this is kind of an interesting place to balance. It's not particularly clean. You know, you could argue that the 886 is the hardest fib retracement to trade around. And you don't even have to think about it as the 886. Just think about either a very bullish move towards all-time highs or a very bearish move towards a major low or major high, major low, and then just a slight rejection before price tests the liquidity above the level. It's 88.6% of the move. Certainly have seen some major moves off the 886, and you know, every once in a while I have found those moves. And we've seen major pivots come off the 886. Here, kind of a range retest. So, you know, we've kind of wicked, if you call the sweep of a range low, we've wicked back into the range low. And I think it's kind of unproductive to call this anything but a range, while it is a range. There are some kind of shallow channeling ideas here. Like, let's forget harmonics for a second. And you could also just call this a descending channel. And sometimes these shallow ideas are quite powerful, right? Would just be, you know, to come and tap the lows of the descending channel. Come and sweep this low. I think a pretty obvious setup in some regards. Just come and tag this low, Nice clean invalidation for a long setup. Maybe some of you guys want to leave a comment in the YouTube chat here. If you're higher time frame expecting lower here, for the range to break down or for the range to break up to all-time highs. Order flow is not really worth ignoring. I mean, it's actually been like it almost became a joke in the Discord. Oh, I also see a chart here to take a look at. And the reason I'm doing this stream too, in regards to Bitcoin, is because yeah, I mean, basically just have had, you could call it, I mean, there's no way to know with certainty what's going to happen. But with all these nice alignments with alts hitting major levels, just have had a pretty lackluster read on Bitcoin. And even order flow, I'm going to pull this up in a second. Let me I'll just take a look at this. So we're going to look at some of this in order flow. We're going to just review it quickly. So this is as we were coming down to that range. It was like as soon as any longs came in, just instantly punished. So we had a really clean reaction, for example, because my plan here basically was if we saw a V-shaped recovery, I would stay in that long. If not, I would just cut it at entry, right? It's size wider, but I'll just cut it and wait for the wicks to be retested and look for a reaction. Had tons of selling coming in here. Typically nice to long around those types of big negative delta flushes, but we're going to take a look at order flow and just how it kind of behaved during this move down. So I took that long and we had a nice immediate reaction. You know, price started moving up quickly. But here I said I want to note that we have a nice reaction, but we're going to find out pretty quick because there's a lot of longs piling in here. And typically, in most cases, those will get punished, but especially in this downtrend. I mean, at some point, just any longs that opened got punished pretty quick. So this is like, yes, we had really heavy selling on Bitcoin as well, but as soon as any aggressive longs came in, just over and over, punished pretty heavily. I made a joke. Feels like you can just ignore the selling in order flow. 20 million at a level, 50 million, 300 million, no big deal. No one cares. Oh, 2 million longs open, straight down. And actually, in this case, it did go straight down again. But, you know, and you could start to see on the low time frames, these sellers stepping in, just really, you know, these really blocky sort of sell order, or the really blocky price action these sell orders create, and just, you know, you have longs from the lows and you just see, okay, everybody's about to get wrecked again. I think all these longs are about to get smoked. That's what I was saying there, because again, it's just over and over again, and we're gonna go into the order flow, but we take that low, and then someone in the Discord says send it. I said everyone apparently has the same idea, because again, just super aggressive longs coming in, instantly punished again. I made a joke, let him free. You can just see this big market long here. Price instantly rejects or below it and wrecks it again. Yeah. So anyways, that's what we're going to be looking at. But it was kind of obvious at the time that that's what was happening. And you were seeing these huge liquidation wicks, some reactions, a lot of longs piling in, instantly stopped out, reactions, instantly stopped out. And I made a joke here. Fuck, someone opened a $2 million long after $2 billion in liquidations. Time for another leg down. And it's kind of a joke, but that actually is what happened. Anyways, so that was sort of the nature. Oh, fuck me. I'm on the wrong. All right. Well, we're going to look at it live, but this was what I was referring to. Fuck, someone opened a 2 million market long after 2 billion in liquidations. Time for another leg down. But anyways, so this is what we're going to look at in the order flow. Apparently everyone having the same idea here. As soon as there's big liquidations, any longs piling in, instantly punished. And it almost didn't matter the degree to which positions were liquidated. So anyways, let's jump over into the order flow here. And we're going to take a look at some of that. So first off, this first initial big move to the downside, and just to zoom out here to get context, this one, and then we came lower. Big liquidations. 130 million volume, 37 million delta, 17 million delta, and this is in dollars. These are all decreasing open interest, so lots of longs stopped out here. And this is when we came and first swept that those first weekly wicks and daily wicks. And that's where I took my long, looking for a V-shaped recovery and just saying, I'll cut if we don't just literally V-shape straight up. I don't care if I'm cutting back at entry. And otherwise, I will just retest. We ended up ranging or reassess at the sweep of the wick. But we ended up ranging. But let's just take a look at this order flow really quickly. And we'll look at BTC USDT too, because we're going to see similar things here. But 2.4K, 832 Bitcoin negative delta there. But anyways, so we have the big liquidation wick. Nothing too crazy in order flow. We started to see some aggressive longs coming in. Price instantly punishing them. And we did see a bit of aggressive selling up here get absorbed. But again, as soon as these aggressive longs come in, and relative to the move down, nothing too crazy, but instantly punished. See a little bit of bearish divergences forming in the order flow here. Ran to the lows. So this is where things kind of get interesting, is we see the negative 25 million delta here as a bunch of positions get run again. Instantly, 13 million positive delta here, instantly punished. And just big sell-off wicks here. This was happening too at these range lows on the BTC USDT chart. Instantly, these are those longs I guess you couldn't see because I forgot to go to the Discord. But where I was just saying that, hey, we've had a nice reaction off these lows, but over this next 20 minutes, there's actually a lot of longs piling in here. And so this move's about to get tested pretty quick because these longs have been getting punished immediately. Punished again. Even here, I mean, nothing major, but as soon as any longs come in, aggressive longs, instantly punished into these big sell-off wicks. So we might see some of that here because we are seeing some aggressive buying. I mean, technically, that shouldn't be a bad thing always. There has to be some aggressive buying at some point that holds for a price to go up, right? But so after this big liquidation wick, we're seeing this sort of V-shaped recovery. Looks quite strong. And just right here, during this live stream, we're seeing some really, really aggressive buying coming in here on linear and not so aggressive on BTC USD. Coming up to test some local highs. So we'll see, this is where you could just see price pop through some of this liquidity up here, take these highs pretty quickly. And This is in the Discord this morning, just saying, good morning, everyone. Well, every low except the major low has been taken, starting to reclaim the major pivot, and starting to see that V-shaped recovery. And after liquidation wick, like if there's a major level that price liquidates into, I think it's a perfectly reasonable setup as price sucks back up above the level to open along. You have your invalidation lower, but you can just cut it if there's not a strong recovery, right? Like price should essentially just go straight up from the level and keep going up and just cut the risk out of the position. If a range forms, you can always look for different entries. But this looks quite strong, right? We have this really strong V-shaped recovery, just building, gonna take some local highs here. And this price can just recover. Now we start squeezing out short stops. It can recover this move very quickly. And you don't always get super clean retracements off of something like this. So yeah, I would just say that mid time frame, I'm expecting us to come up. I mean, we could range here, we could do a lot of things, but I'm expecting us to at least come up and test these weekly candle highs and this POC up around 67K as a pretty likely mid time frame target here. What happens there is going to be very telling. You know, might get a retracement, come back into maybe the middle of this ascending channel. But if we reclaim that, it's kind of hard not to just look for all-time highs again. I guess in some sense I feel fortunate to have had so many long setups on my alt charts hit and be holding, because I'm carrying quite a few alt longs. Because in all reality, given the Bitcoin price action, all of those should have got stopped out. All right. Let me just read through the comments here. Oh yeah, there's certainly ideas. I mean, the 52K region. So Brains, who's also out of the Discord, just asking if there's any ideas where we could come down to the 52K region. I mean, yeah, for sure. It's not hard to imagine that there's liquidity under this wick. So, I mean, this could just, whatever happens here could just be a nasty wick. It is a little bit suspicious to see this idea of us just not taking this low into that 786 if we come down there, but maybe not, right? Like to bounce from 52K versus just take that low. But my guess would be if price is coming down to this area of the chart, it's not coming down here like really slowly. We probably have the last leg. It's just a big wick. So it's probably being driven by a lot of liquidations. Can we look at Pepe? Yeah, we can. Just because, hold on one second. I wasn't going to look at a bunch of alts here. And I am getting a request in the Discord for an alt. And in the chat. But we'll look at these two. That's it. We'll look at these two alts really quick. Let's go to Pepe first. This is an old Pepe chart. From back here, just marking out this idea of a range forming here. Some major levels below. You know, for example, if you had told me back here that Bitcoin was going to run down to the range lows back on the 8th, back here. So this is when Bitcoin was here. If you told me Bitcoin is going to be here in a couple weeks, I would have said there's a very high likelihood that Pepe is coming into at least this low or this low. Major ideas there. Super high volume area. Come and take the impulse low. And there's also a really clean idea down here around, let's just call 569 and 87. You guys can see the chart. 87, 597. High volume areas. Structurally, it's very clean. Kind of breaking out of a descending structure here. Looks like the low came in a perfect parallel structure. We're pretty close. It's maybe not perfect. So this is the 4-hour chart. Price running down in a parallel downtrend. Pinged off the lows here. Could kind of stay in the middle of nowhere. At least on the log scale chart. Actually, I guess worth noting that that channel is only on the log scale chart. And worth noting that if you go on linear, we're actually back testing this trend line breakdown right now, taking a pivot high. So actually this is probably a critically important moment for Pepe. Like this is kind of the sort of, I should maybe draw this a little bit cleaner just to make sure that we're actually interacting with the level. You know, this is probably the kind of idea that you look to, you look for scalp short setups, but waiting for weakness. You have some highs here. I mean, this, you know, it's a range, right? Critical ideas. It's like any of these pivot highs. You form some highs, price either is going to break out or it's going to continue chopping around and ranging. Can have really clean invalidation. Short setups in regions like that on the chart. But as for me personally, I'm really only interested in trading around longs around these levels. And obviously I have some short ideas up higher. If you go to the daily chart. Coming up. Maybe taking these highs. Would be interesting to me. But we're kind of breaking out of a descending structure, about to retest the breakdown of this ascending structure. That's actually going to be similar to Sol. So on the daily chart, we had this sort of grinding ascending trend line. We've broken it down, and we're pretty close to coming up and retesting that breakdown again. You know, if we go into the lower time frames here, these highs aligning with our local GP might have some descending structure here. This very similar again to Pepe, like just how the low came in, just ran into this descending structure, ultimately made a new low. but a pretty clean interaction here. Sort of breaking out of this descending parallel structure. So anyways, I'm getting sidetracked. The other coin I was gonna, so yeah, for me, I mean, we'll see. For Pepe, this is important resistance. You can just see it on the daily chart. Do we break up out of these daily highs, come up and test these daily highs, or do we reject again and continue ranging? No way to know. But there is some important ideas of just retesting this trend line breakdown as we come up and take these highs, which would align with this 382 retracement. Can be quite bearish to reject from there. Looks strong if we don't. So yeah, I would say, I mean, I wouldn't even be that opposed to trying a short with tight invalidation. Put on a little bit of risk, either works or it doesn't, into this low. Come take these highs. The whole idea here is pretty structurally sound. You have quite a bit of confluence. You have the liquidity of these daily highs getting taken. You kind of have this trend line breakdown retest, and you have this horizontal retest. So it would just be an SR flip. Price comes back below. You take the highs, target down into this pivot low. Looks like quite a clean short setup, actually. So I'll probably keep an eye on that. And the non-trigger version would just be price breaks up above the level, claims it, and continues higher. You just don't take the short. You wait for the liquidity to get grabbed, and just because you get a trigger doesn't mean it will work. And then you enter with a stop above the new high. Okay, just because I said I would, I'm going to go to this TIA chart that was requested in the Discord, and then we'll end by just looking at Bitcoin. I'll give my kind of final thoughts there. I can't recall charting this in a long time, but I'm sure it was requested on a live stream at some point. So the chart that was requested, and it has its own TA here from a member, is this chart. So not a lot of price history here. A very, let's say a very ambitious channel. And I would imagine depends on the exchange you're on, where some of these lows come in. That's on Binance. We don't. I see. So here's the only thing I'll say about this chart. It's very nice around that 786. Structurally, not a lot of confluence there, but getting a really clean reaction. The only thing I'm going to say about that chart is, you know, you can get a little tricky with channels like this because it doesn't actually look like you have such a the angle here on this time frame. It almost looks like you just kind of have it pulled to fit a little bit. Like you can kind of do anything. Look, I move it a little bit and I can make this low kind of come in wherever I want. And so I would just say that like it looks like you have some confluences, but you know, you can do whatever you want here, and you can make it come here. And because if it's not snapped perfectly, then really what's the point of the channel? Because just any slight change here is a pretty dramatic change here. Like we're talking 15, 20, 30% price action just going like this. And it looks like you kind of have it pulled through the tops of these wicks to make it fit that low. But still interesting to have that trend angle as part of your confluence. Then you have this downtrending structure here. You have it as just a trend line. We can add a channel into there just to have it. See, this is, we can even snap it to the wicks here just to make sure it's perfect. So this is a pretty clean channel, right? You have a couple things going on with this downtrend channel, which is the clean interactions with the highs and the lows, and you have the center line interaction here. That's kind of where we're bouncing from now. And I think with channels, you know, it is nice to have them snapped pretty cleanly. You have the 786 here. Always nice to look for on alts. Structurally, nothing. I wanted to see what this looks like on the monthly chart really quickly. Because on the monthly chart, this is taking the monthly candle low. And that's always a nice level to trade around. Does that even make any sense? Obviously, a big cluster of daily candles here. Excuse me. I mean, yeah, I don't hate the idea, even just in terms of where the market is broadly. Signs of strength come in and reclaim this. I mean, what I like about the idea, probably more than even some of the high time frame levels, although being aware of that high time frame drawdown, I guess, as to maybe lean towards holding some of this as a swing position. I mean, you just have this really nice liquidity grab, the range lows, and nice reaction, breaking up out of this range. I mean, locally, that looks quite strong. There's a lot of scenarios here where you just see some strong continuation. So, coming up to test this downtrend. We're actually tagging this trend line perfectly right now. Always interesting. These trend lines can be quite powerful on especially on the lower time frames, but obviously we can see it's been relevant. It's aligned right through the top of the range here. So a rejection would just look like this. A little liquidity grab above the range highs. Breakout. Be a front running this level. Yeah, I don't know. I think there's some cool ideas here. I don't know if that monthly candle's on your chart. You have that 786 there. Definitely a nice local trigger. And for long setups there, you definitely just want to start seeing this descending structure break and some nice clean continuation. All right, so let me end with Bitcoin here, and then we'll wrap up the live stream. So the question that I wanted to answer was from Jay. Do you see Bitcoin in a new impulsive wave to new highs or a corrective move? I mean, I would just say that for whatever leanings I had towards a move to all-time highs, I mean, a lot of those ideas are pretty ambiguous now. I don't really have a strong, like, there's just, at this point, I mean, we're in a range, we're back at the range lows. It's a lot easier to think about all-time highs. Let's go back here. When you have, I don't know why this doesn't want to load. When you kind of have this price action, right? You have all-time highs here. You have, there we go. You have a double top. You have your point of control, a range, come back down, retest the range. I mean, but now, it's not that I'm opposed to it, but we just have so many levels to contend with first. So, I mean, I would say that I'd be surprised if we don't rotate up and at least retest these levels, regardless of what happens, whether we claim them and continue on or reject. That's the major level I'm looking at, around 67,200, 67,300. And what happens from there? You know, structurally, this just gets very, hard, right? We're to have a trending perspective for a move to the downside or upside. You have such a choppy correction here. Price is just in a range for many months, and we've found our way back down to test the lows of the range, and we found our ways back up to the highs of the range, and had a major rejection that I wouldn't have thought was so likely. That's like, I initially shorted here, and I actually took a short up here, but I only held it for a minor retracement. You know, expecting maybe some reactions there, come up and take these daily highs. This initial short did want to trade it down to the point of control, but you know, holding the point of control, this just looks quite nice for a move to, whether you react here or not, to all-time highs. Test some of that liquidity, in which case I had some bearish ideas from there. But again, now we flipped the point of control. We haven't held up this kind of range liquidity grab idea, and we're just in a range. I've seen some Elliott wave counts that sort of, I mean, there was a lot of bullish Elliott wave count variations throughout here for these retracements, and some of them still exist, but I mean, they were nobody's primary count. It's very hard in this type of price action to have your primary count just be this for 4 months, right? There's something I want to just kind of talk about for a second, which is, you know, let's just talk about the high time frame structures. We're going to go on just the trending structures and levels. We're going to go on log scale and non-log. Like you could kind of mark this out a few ways, with the more kind of aggressive trending angles and less aggressive. This one we're nearing. You could maybe look for some parallel structures here. Again, wanting them to be drawn quite cleanly. Let's just snap this. We're going to get there in a second. I got to grab this handle. Maybe, I mean, this is kind of hard to draw out because you kind of could do it from here. And I think these two lows connect quite nicely. Like this would probably be the appropriate parallel structure. because you have the tag on the high and both tags on the lows. We're pretty darn close. So we haven't interacted with this. Look probably kind of clean to do so. Come double bottom this low. That'd be okay for the trending structure. Go to log scale as well. And we've broken down some of these ascending structures, but not these parallels from these highs. So we're in a range. Probably worth looking at some of these shallower trend angles as well. If we did get a really quick breakdown here, some of this might align with that 786 target or with that 52K level brains. Yeah, I don't know. So the only thing I don't like about, you know, the bullish ideas here is, man, this is just such a weird low. Higher would be interesting. Lower would be interesting. But doesn't this low have just a weird look to it for a major low before a move to the upside? In terms of, it's just this 886 correction. It's just a range low. It doesn't really interact with any trending structures. Yeah. I'm just going to focus on some of these immediate levels, which is, you know, probably over the next couple of days, look at how this move progresses, start looking for technical retracements, probably looking for major resistance around that POC level, and just take it level to level here in this immediate uptrend, and maybe spend a little bit of time thinking about the higher time frame perspectives here, letting some of this structure form. But, you know, stuff like this could, I mean, there's probably going to be some pretty interesting setups locally. And I'm not going to create too much of a higher time frame thesis here. I don't see anything clear. Nothing looks like, oh yeah, that makes sense. With alts, it is another story. I mean, it would not be surprising to see Doge coming into maybe some descending structure here. It would not be surprising to see a major move off of Doge here. I mean, this just looks so clean. So much technical confluence here. This was a level I'd had on my charts for a while. This nice clean trending intersection. Key fibs, key horizontals. Some of these fibs are only on the non-log, by the way. You have this choppy downtrend. I mean, start breaking out of that, and this just looks very clean. Same with Phil and some other alts. So I'm in those swing longs, and they just seem much more clear than Bitcoin at this point. And you guys might have another opinion. I mean, I kind of wanted to, I was interested in seeing some other charts from you guys, but I'm going to end the live stream here. Just to see, you know, maybe some of you guys have some different perspectives here that are pretty compelling. This is just sort of like, and you know what? That doesn't mean it can't be a major low, and it probably will be. I mean, you could just say like, well, everyone's liquidated, and now price is going to go up, showing a lot of strength. And so my game plan here is just going to be to focus on local levels. We might get those scenarios, like for example, just because price goes up a lot doesn't mean there's not going to be nice long setups higher. And it's not always the case, but this all came with me off the charts for most of this rally here. And there were so many clean long setups here. Like I ended up being able to compound. And even here, such nice long setups here, even after this impulse in this little range, targeting all-time highs. This was our first rejection from all-time highs. So I just want to say, like, just because price has gone up and you feel like, oh, I've missed the move. I mean, breaking up out of this range, very, very nice long setups out of here. Even up here, we had very clean, nice long setups. Order flow was a little bit more, it behaved a little bit better. But all of this, nice, big bullish divergences, it targeting into all-time highs again, come back down. There was nice long setups in here as well. And there was obviously nice long setups in here. I did famously short the all-time high, but super nice technical retracements inside of this price action as well for long setups. So my point being this, I'm not really experiencing any FOMO, more just sort of mystified at the complete decorrelation between Bitcoin and alts. And people say that happen. I see people saying it happens a lot, and it can happen, but for the entire alt market just to completely decorrelate like that in such a strong move to the downside is a little bit unusual. Individual alts, maybe not so much. All right. Well, I'll answer this last question. Naj says, I saw on Twitter you were targeting all-time highs for Doge from that level. Do you have any bearish ideas on Doge? Well, I'll say this. The bullish ideas, the structure of the bullish ideas is on the chart, right? So obviously, I'm going to be pretty open to bearish ideas from here. I mean, and what you consider bearish. Like, do you consider this bearish? Do you consider this bearish? Do you consider this bearish? You know, is a 15, 20% move down in this level breaking bearish? Are you considering, do I have any bearish ideas as in terms of all-time lows, price to go back to 1 cent? So anyways, the point being, if this structure starts breaking, well, I'm going to reassess the bullish thesis, of course. Pretty strong little rejection there locally. But yeah, it's like, I'll put it this way. I don't really care one way or the other. Price either holds this level or it doesn't. And I literally waited for months to long to take the bullish trade here, which is just to come and retest this breakout into these nice technical levels. And so I took the trade with risk management and invalidation. And yeah, I'd be kind of skeptical of bullish ideas from here if we start breaking all of this down. And you have no reason to not look for lower without signs of strength. And we could just form a bigger range, and there's always different ideas on the chart. But here's the other thing. When somebody would ask, like, do you have bearish ideas from here? It kind of infers also that, like, do I have swing shorts from here? Ideas. It kind of doesn't matter also, because at some point, if you're going to form a bearish thesis on something, like Doge, for example, I mean, I kind of have missed the boat at this point, right? Like, not saying we can't break down, but like if this is where my strong bearish thesis comes in, I'm like, you know what, guys, I've got the best short here on Doge, the best idea here. I've been studying the charts, and as price comes back down into its multi-month lows, retesting this, all of this ascending structure support, I have got this great bearish idea, and I'm going to swing short. So yeah, I don't really like to approach the charts like that. I like to form my bearish ideas at the highs, right? And if at resistance, near the end of a strong move. Same thing like with Phil. Like, I was bearish up here. I'm bullish up here. Somebody could ask me, well, what are the bearish ideas on Phil? Well, the bearish ideas were before the 80% move to the downside, coming in, just rejecting with this as a range into this pivot low. And the kind of nice long setups here are to come and grab this liquidity and recover here. So, yeah, I guess the answer would be for whatever bearish ideas I have, I wouldn't even trade them. I wouldn't trade them here. Because a lot of times I'm just setting alerts weeks, days, months ahead of time, watching for major levels to get hit, for the bullish ideas at support, bearish ideas at resistance. And are there bearish ideas on Phil? Yeah. I mean, there's bearish ideas on literally every altcoin because eventually they're probably all going to go to zero. And the bearish idea is just it goes to zero and the market dies. Or it just comes and takes these lows. That's a pretty big move to the downside. But again, am I going to start focusing on all the short bearish ideas, setups on Phil here after this move down? No, I was pretty adamant about probably the bearish ideas being more approachable from up here. So that's my perspective. Hopefully that doesn't sound like have too much of a bias, because it's not really a bias. It's just it's like if I'm going to try a swing long on Doge in the context of this price action, and I think there are some really bullish ideas, and I do, and I'm going to have the patience to take that, wait for this. I don't even know if I'm going to get it, and we front ran it so many times. Take all these levels, come into this clean technical level, and have the patience to wait for months to take this position. I think this is a good try. I think this is a good try for the bullish case on Doge. We obviously need to start seeing signs of strength here, and we either do or we don't. And I think there's some really bullish ideas towards all-time highs. That may or may not happen. That may or may not take a long time. We'll see. But yeah, anyways, it's not a bias. It's trading support. It's trading around the, I think the cleanest type of high time frame setups that are available on this chart. And I might try some new longs. If we break down, be kind of hard not to think some of these pivots are going to get taken. So that's my perspective on Doge. You know, I feel some brains are saying, by the way, guys, if you're watching this, I've been in Lucky's server for a while now. Yes, he's been in for years. And he says, I have to say, he's not only the best trader I've ever seen, but also the best teacher. Highly recommend checking the LATF. You know, I feel a little sheepish just because, man, I've just had such a tough time with this price action on Bitcoin. All throughout this downtrend. I mean, it's sort of like little consolation that in hindsight, because I always say this, that it doesn't really matter if your trades are in profits if you aren't taking profits. And it doesn't even really matter. I'd be like, oh, I longed the lows of every pivot and we got these nice strong reactions. But I was targeting all-time highs for out of those levels. So again, it doesn't matter even if you longed here and longed literally every low and you got these nice impulses if you didn't take profits from the positions, right? So anyways, yeah, I feel like I've been a little bit off my game with Bitcoin, but I appreciate that. I mean, I've definitely been pretty dialed in on Bitcoin's price action. And in some ways, it just is like, it's kind of funny because when you look at this chart, all of this just looks like an absolute nightmare to trade. Like if you just kind of looked at this price action versus this price action, you'd be like, oh, this would just annihilate anyone. Like all these big wicks, choppy price action into all-time highs, big rejection. This was ultimately quite easy to trade. In the sense that literally just dialed in. So like adding on the uptrends, getting the shorts at the highs, getting longs on all these pivot lows, nice technical structures, even having longs targeting this level for rejection at the time, front running the and not that it really matters, but I did short this, but it doesn't really matter because I only held it as for a minor retracement. But anyways, that said, I appreciate the kind words. I want to get dialed in with Bitcoin's price action, and that's why I was going to take a little bit of time off the charts today because, I mean, you know, let some of this volatility play out. Fortunate to be in a lot of those alt longs, and that those nice technical structures have held up. But yeah, I definitely haven't felt dialed in with Bitcoin's price action. Well, yeah, you know, that's so getting some love in the chat, so that's nice. Yeah, you said just has to be a quick TP and move stop to break even. Absolutely. I mean, that's something that I'm oftentimes, I guess you could say, preaching, which is just there's nothing wrong as a trade is going in your favor and, you know, you're in meaningful profits to take profits and just take the risk of your trade. You can always find a new setup. And but the like, what am I going to say here? Because I didn't do that, right? So, I mean, there's obviously pros and cons to holding your entire trade to major targets and leaving some of that unrealized profit and risking your position. And in these cases, you know, I could say, I mean, all these trades were great trades. I'd say, yeah, but I just took profits on all of them on the impulse, right? We came up and impulsed up through these highs. I took profits, but I didn't do that, so it doesn't really matter. It's kind of like celebrating. I don't know what the metaphor is, but nice entries, bad plan overall, apparently. Doesn't even have to be a bad plan, but I mean, it's not the best plan, apparently. Well, yeah, I really appreciate that again. Chrono says, we love Pucky so much. Great teacher. And Brain says, every time one of my friends asks me about trading, I send them one of Lucky's videos, and they all say, damn, he's a great teacher. Yeah, I think, you know what? I think some people respond well to different styles and whatever, and for whatever reason, I don't know why, but over the years, definitely people have made similar comments. Just that, you know, for all the time they've spent in the markets and whatever, that certain ideas seem to have clicked with me in ways they haven't with others. So I really appreciate it, everyone. Yeah, I guess I didn't really have a direct plan with this live stream. Other than just to kind of look at the Bitcoin chart again, and maybe, you know, maybe I'm going to take the rest of the day off the chart here. But yeah, and I'll revisit it. Obviously, kind of expecting some volatility and probably some squeezing to the upside. Wouldn't be such a strange way for this downtrend to end. But we'll see what things look like tomorrow. So.